So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the bandwidth. Let me see. My speaker view. Welcome to the bandwidth again. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the bandwidth. I want to introduce myself. I am Rosie. And we are here again. This is our second edition of the bandwidth. I'm so excited for this new journey, talking about going live and showing up on camera. This is such an exciting time for many of us who want to take this journey, but we just don't know what to do. So we created the bandwidth to have experts on to help you tackle this challenge for you. So if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure that you are subscribed. Hit that subscribe button and also share this. If you know one person that could benefit from this conversation tonight, please make sure that you share it with them. And also we ask that you comment your biggest takeaway from this episode in the comments section. And also follow us on IG. It's Faulkner_Rosie. So a little housekeeping. We want you to definitely engage with us tonight. So if you have questions, please put it in the comment in the scroll up or wherever. I think it's just the scroll up, and we will definitely get to that. Today, our title is Breaking the Fear Barrier of Showing Up on Camera. And we have Chelsea Fox here today to talk about it. She is a mindset and confidence coach. So I'm excited to get started. So Chelsea, welcome to the bandwidth.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. Now, I know I said that you were a mindset and confidence coach, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I do my coaching exclusively for Black women ages 25 to 35 who are considered the strong Black women. So that could be anyone who assumes that position at work, in their family, in their friendships, or anything like that. And they've reached a point where they want to just rest. They want to recoup. They want to be in a position where they want their garden or their flowers to be watered. So I started Well Watered Coaching and Consulting to kind of help Black women change different ways of thinking and doing and being to receive the love and receive the care, but also use different methods of goal setting to where they can accomplish all the things they want in life and not be everything to everybody before they are everything to themselves.
Yes, and that is a big issue in the Black community with women, like you said, just trying to do everything for family, friends, spouse, and always forget about their self. So yeah, great work you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's something definitely we need in our community. So first question is, what's the most common reason people fear being on camera?
Yeah, so for a lot of people, it's just experience from them being a person who's watched TV. And when they're watching TV, they are looking at the flaws and imperfections of other people. So they assume that other people are going to do the same things to them, that people are going to notice this hair on their face, these acne scars, maybe a certain weight or something wrong with their teeth. So that's the first thing. It's going to be like purely cosmetic. And we know that with media, they want a certain look. No matter what type of skin tone you have to have a certain look, whether it's a certain size, certain bone structure, certain height. They're mindful of that. So you have that, and then being mindful of maybe their language or their accent and the way that they speak and voice and diction. So people become afraid of that as well. So it's kind of like you have all these eyes on you, and especially when you are like the main presenter, everyone's paying attention to what you're saying and how you're saying it, and you don't want to make the mistake of saying the wrong thing and then it not being received well. So people tend to have a fear because of that, and then thinking that, I don't have the character or the personality, I won't have the energy, and then maybe I don't have the intellect to kind of carry the conversation in a way that I think is appropriate.
So how can they conquer that fear and that barrier? Because everyone that's out there doing it, like me and you, we're doing it now. We have those same fears. So how can women conquer that nobody's really looking at that pimple on your face. That's just something that is there. But 9 times out of 10, nobody is really dealing with that. And to me, I think it's just like, okay, she got breakouts just like me. It's more relatable to me. But how can we help women overcome that?
Yeah, I think from the cosmetic point of view is that, of course, you don't have to be made up and done up all the time, every time you get on camera, but having the basic principles down when it comes to kind of makeup and hygiene is the first start. Because people are afraid of like, well, my hair won't look right and my makeup won't look right. Understand the basics or learn the basics, maybe learning YouTube tutorials and practicing with that is always the start. But then once you get that down, and that is just purely practicing in the mirror at home, maybe every day when you're done with work or going to work, because those are just coworkers who are going to see you every day, who may give you the honest feedback to say, hey, you can adjust these small things before you get onto a large platform on your social media or somewhere else recorded. And in addition to that is watching other people who do it. Be it someone who's like new, someone who is like doing a podcast. Maybe some people do podcast recordings that are also visual, or even listening to audiobooks and just listening to how their voice and diction carries throughout them speaking, but also how they enunciate certain words. And then the last thing is just practicing on recording yourself. You could do an audio recording, but you can also do a video recording as well. I think video was great because it does both. You can kind of see, what are your habits? Do you look up when you have to stop and think? Do you say a lot? Some people tend to like do things with their feet that you may or may not see on camera, but you can see your body moving and doing these things. Some people may bite their nails or bite their lips. So like pay attention to those small little things that may be happening that you would notice, that maybe someone else would notice as well. That way you may not even have to share it with someone else, but you can take notes on yourself and you can self-correct in that way before you even broadcast to an audience.
No, I think that is very important. I think the replay is really key because like you said, once you watch that, you can tell the things that you need to, make adjustments and say, what, I'm going to practice more. But the practicing is definitely key. So you can pick up those things and actually feel a little bit more confident when you appear on camera. And I also like that, just breathe, just breathe because you're going to be nervous. And just take the time to take deep breaths and collect yourself and, just that helps me a lot.
Yeah. And then you want to compare yourself to like realistic people or people who are going to be similar to whatever it is you're doing. So I wouldn't compare myself to someone who's like a news reporter. I think news reporters are phenomenal at what they do. They tend to communicate in a way that has no errors, and the voice and diction is there. The articulation is there, the persona is there, and it's almost perfect, but I don't want to speak in that way. However, if I wanted to be mindful of posture, I may look at them for that. Whereas how I speak is more so like talk show host like. So then I may go look at people who do things like that and then compare, how do they speak? How do they look and engage the audience when they're talking and things like that. So just being mindful of the type of audience that you're looking at when you are communicating.
So how important, if you go through all of those exercises, looking at a news personality, looking at, maybe a host of a TV show like The Real or something like that. But what about, how important is it to just be your authentic self? Because you may not see yourself in none of those. You may have a more outgoing personality. So how important is it to be true to yourself?
I think it's a mix. I think you can still be true to yourself while also still being mindful that there are some things that may need to be released over time. So when you have a certain personality or you have certain mannerisms, I don't think it's always best to bring that all out at once, because you're still, especially if you're still building an audience, everyone isn't used to or familiar with those same mannerisms. So especially if you're from like a certain regional area, people may not understand certain language or words that you're using or colloquialisms that you may use. Some people may not understand what that means if it's certain demographics. If your ideal audience or target audience members haven't been identified all the way, or it hasn't solidified itself in a way that you're only attracting those type of people yet. So you want to be mindful of being able to be understood across various audiences. So in my daytime job, I'm in a predominantly white environment. So of course I have to code switch, but I code switch just enough to where people who are from different places, it's predominantly white, but a lot of international people. So people from different walks of life can understand what I'm saying, but culturally, they'll learn things from me as well. So eventually over time, as we go through, it's in an academic setting. So as the school year goes through, they then begin to learn more of who I am culturally, because I didn't bring it all out at once and leave them kind of confused. So it's kind of like piece by piece, you have to kind of slowly bring those things out and understand that it's not just people from your hometown or wherever you're from and whatever industry you're in that are watching you. There are always people who are from many different places and many different backgrounds who may be watching you, who may not understand those things. You want to be mindful of that as well.
Mm-hmm. So just to stay with that example, should you bring them into your world and maybe tell them what some of those things are, like maybe I guess look jargons or whatever, or slang terms you may use? Because sometimes I feel like I'm from DC, so sometimes I may say something like "sights," that means happy or whatever, but I don't realize I'm saying it, and then somebody may say something in the comments, and I'm like, "Oh, that means I'm happy" or whatever. Just kind of like bringing them into your world a little.
Oh, absolutely. How I explain things is that anytime you are communicating something, most audience members, this is like even a thing in marketing and journalism. When you are communicating something, you want to communicate like you're talking to a 16-year-old. A 16-year-old hasn't had the same experiences you've had by virtue of them not being as old as you are. So with that in mind, they more than likely have lived in this one place. They haven't had the same experiences. So when you say and do certain things, you want to give the caveat to say, this means this. So a euphemism that we may say is that, like you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
You want to explain what that means as you say it, or you want to give context of where that comes from when you say it, because not everyone is going to be from the South, or not everyone's going to be from an older generation or they're not all going to be Black. So they're not going to always understand what that kind of means. So always giving context to things that you're saying and just make it a quick context, like 10-second sentence, and moving along. That way people aren't lost, because something that people do a lot is kind of like neurotypical, how we would phrase it. And neurotypical is just people who have normal brain functioning. But that's the assumption that we all have the same brain functions. We don't. Some people have maybe they may be on the spectrum of autism. They may have Asperger's. They may have ADHD, all these different things. So when we're making implications, assuming that the person may get it, people like that won't understand those things. So we have to account for those audience members as well, that you want to explain as if you're talking to a 16-year-old. Like, they may not understand some of the things that you're saying, and it may not land on everyone the same. So it's just the same as if you go to a website. If you go to a website, it's not going to just say, click here. It's going to say, click here to do X, Y, and Z. So you want to kind of give instructions and give details to everything that you're saying. It seems like a lot, but with practice, it becomes easier.
Okay. Now, shifting our mindset to be a little bit more positive. I know before you had mentioned something about, asking people, but I feel you need to ask the right people because you may ask someone that can put you 2 steps back when you have come so far. So can you talk a little bit about that, shifting mindset?
Yeah. I think when it comes to asking the right people, like building a team prior to anything that you do in life, really, I call it your executive board. Your executive board should consist of people who already make you feel empowered. Now, feeling empowered is plenty of ways that you can feel that way. It's not going to always feel good. Sometimes feeling empowered means that you've been held accountable. Someone has brought something to your attention, or that they're doing some type of coaching, some type of level setting. Either way, you should walk away feeling like, you know what, I learned something new. This person is supporting me. This person is making me feel better. And doing that assessment with the people in your life and just saying, 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, do I feel that way after I have conversations with this person? Do I trust this person with my information? Do I trust this person not to judge me or criticize me? Or if they are doing so, is it done in a loving manner to help build me? So with that, then you know who to go to about different things that you may be doing. And then once you figure that out, then understanding okay, what direction am I taking and what mindset am I even approaching this in? I think that a lot of times where we mess up is that we don't prepare or plan to fail, when failure is just a natural part of growing and learning. And that's an easy discouragement for people because we don't have our expectations in the right perspective to really set ourselves up for success. It's kind of like when we fail one time, we quit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can't definitely do that if you're trying to achieve something, because it takes, keep doing it. Like you said, you're going to fail. So you have to, shift your mindset to say, okay, I may not get this the first time, but I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to surround myself, like you said, with people that are going to tell me, the truth and get me to the place that I need to be. So
yeah. And even if you don't have encouragement to keep going as well, I think that some people wait on other people to kind of push them and encourage them to go, but you have to keep going even when you're not getting any type of validation. The only validation you should get is that I accomplished it. Even if it's not right, even if it's not perfect, even if the timing doesn't feel good, I still produced this thing, and that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if somebody is, I know we kind of talked about it too, but if somebody is on the verge of just quitting, what are some of the things that they can do to keep going?
I think it's worth assessing how far have you come?
Mm-hmm.
What happens once you quit? Like, what is quitting going to do for you, and why are you quitting? Are you quitting because you haven't reached the intended goal or outcome? Or are you quitting because you're no longer interested? You kind of have to assess the why first, because if it's because I'm no longer interested, then you kind of have to ask yourself, if I stop this now, will I pick it back up? Some people kind of ride the wave of emotions, and it's down and then it's up, it's down and then it's up. But it's about commitment. And with commitment, you honor your commitment even when the feelings don't feel the same. So being mindful of that. And then the next thing is, have I reached my goals? Well, it's never recommended to put a timeline on goals anyway. Just because you didn't meet the timeline of the goal, let's say you wanted to have maybe a certain number of audience members by a certain date. Okay, that's not a valid reason to quit. You just keep going. Because if you're still passionate about it, if you still have great content, great ideas, that's no reason to quit. Just keep putting more out there. Maybe we need to re-strategize and see what is not working. What do we need to do differently? Or can we implement something new? So understanding those things first and not using quitting as an option. Obviously, there are life circumstances where people have to take breaks that I absolutely understand, but it's okay to take a pause. I would recommend a pause before quitting, and then just allowing people to just think on it for a few days rather than make just emotional decisions sometimes. I never recommend quitting anything, but I recognize that there are also life lessons and things where, okay, I've learned and I've taken what I need to take from this, and I need to try something different.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so how important is public speaking classes? Just to get your confidence up, to move forward with being on camera?
So formal classes, I'm going to say not that important. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say utilize resources you already have. If you are connected to a church, if you are connected to like some type of organization, be it your coworkers, be it maybe a group that you kind of get together with ever so often, if you're in a sorority, utilize networks of people that you already have to say, hey, I would like for you all to listen to me do this presentation on X, Y, and Z. No, I'm not trying to pitch you anything, so anything. I truly just want your feedback on how I present and how I can improve. Let them know that, because, some people do try to do the Forex trading and you bamboozle them and now they don't want to trust you anymore. So like using those small circles and starting small first. If you could do small groups first, then you can work your way up. So that's kind of how I started, even as an undergraduate, starting off as small circles of people. And eventually, post-graduate school, my largest audience was 300 people. So being online, I still get nervous about being online. But if I'm in front of people, that's the easiest thing for me because I can go off of the energy. So it's kind of like having those small classroom settings where you have 3 or more people is the best way for them to just give you feedback on not only how you're presenting, but what you're saying as well, because that matters too. Some people kind of think like, oh, I just put the presentation together and get up here and start talking. No, it has to make logical sense, and it has to have personality in it as well. You have to be able to keep people's attention, because the attention spans are not the same anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have Jennifer saying life lessons will definitely teach you a lot. So that was a comment they put in there. And it's funny because similar to your experience, mine was too. It was just like in the church, you know. So I wanted to join like the hospitality committee, because that day you get up in front of the church, you know, do different roles, and that helped me, you know. And just like you said, starting small with small things, or like you said, with the peer group, but putting myself out there, I was able to, you know, like you say, it's not really reading the crowd, but church is pretty much the easiest way, because they're not going to boo you. They're so encouraging most of the time, I should say. Churches that I've been to, they're so encouraging. And then you can just build upon that to, you know, get your confidence up and move forward. So I do agree with, you know, finding wherever your circle of people so you can do it. And also like doing small things, or like start with stories or something like that expires in 24 hours. Or I know Facebook Live has a version that you can go live with yourself, and, you know, you can see that and see how that goes before you put yourself out there. But, you know, whatever that you need to do so you can take that jump. So
yeah, they also have an app called Meetup. And you can start different meetups now, like everything's virtual. So you can start different meetups. And if you want to do a meetup in your area for people who want to practice public speaking, then that's one way to do it. Now, for me, my experience is unique because I necessarily didn't start speaking in church. However, in high school, I had this French teacher. His name was Mr. Daniels.
Uh-huh.
And we had to do resuscitation every day. Keep in mind, I didn't even do this stuff with regular English, but with French, you know, it's very easy to mess up. Mm-hmm. And his rule of thumb was, you mess up, you sit down and you start over. He was very strict. And then when we became more advanced, you cross your legs, you say, you tilt your head, all this, he would come and rip your paper, and you would start over. Yes. He was one of those people. So like, when people see me like speaking publicly, because I did my graduation speech for undergrad. So like when people see me speaking publicly, I speak really fast. However, beyond that, it's pretty like straightforward to the point and really good. But it's because of that, because you want to get an A in your class. You want to pass. So it's kind of like, didn't like it at the time, absolutely hated it. And I was an English major in college as well. So we had to do voice and diction then. I got all that other stuff out of me already. And I also did pageants too. So I wasn't like all the other girls. I never really won any, but I always wowed people with my interviewing skills and my ability to articulate. So it's kind of like always been conscious of that. And I ended up having like a lot of dental things now, even now, but before I had dental things that changed the way I speak. And now I have my Invisalign in, which my dentist is like, just talk a lot. It'll be back to normal. I'm like, okay. Like it takes time to kind of practice the skill, and having multiple resets in my life is kind of like, okay, still getting nervous, still getting like, okay, I have to prepare, write notes just like everybody else, and make sure that I'm hitting all my points. And it's okay to look up and look down and reassess and reevaluate. Okay, what am I talking about right now?
Yes. No, and I'm glad you brought that up, because yes, I still get nervous too. And so many people have, you know, things that they need to overcome. Like you said, the Invisalign or whatever it is, or like you're super shy. Like I know we gave things about, you know, getting up in front of church, but what about the person that's still like an introvert? And like, still, I can't do it. Like, I still can't get in front of a church, even a small group. Like, what would you say to that person?
The funny thing is, I'm that person. Like my voice cracks. I will always use the restroom before I have to get up and speak.
Yeah.
And I can't talk with mics because I'll shake.
Okay.
So I need a lapel mic or a mic that's on a stand.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm definitely that person. Obviously, I don't pass out, but there are some people who get that close. There are some people who need to take shots and all that. But like, when my voice starts cracking, it's like, oh, okay. Let me slow down and when I'm pausing, let me just, let me let it out and breathe. Or if I'm speaking with another person while the other person is talking, I tend to just like deep breathe under my breath so that the other people can't hear it. But like, I'll deep breathe under my breath. And I'm mindful of my body as well, because we tend to tense up, especially if there's a mic, and your hands will start sweating. So some people may not shake, but they'll sweat. So we tend to tense up and think like, oh, okay, I'm putting all my anxiety into this mic.
Yeah.
When you're also putting into your jawline, your shoulders, and everything else, when you just have to kind of just, again, reset and relax and kind of just keep telling yourself that, especially if they've already given you questions or anything like that, you kind of know what to expect and what's coming. So that gives you an opportunity to just breathe yourself through it, because it goes faster.
Yeah.
What many people think. And you've done all this practicing and it feels like it's just 5 minutes long. So yeah, you just kind of have to do it scared, because a lot of times, especially if you're doing like things in person, you won't see those people in the audience. And what I was taught is to look past the audience. The audience won't know that you're not looking at them. Look past the audience. So if you could see an exit sign at the back of the auditorium or wherever you are, look at that exit sign. You can look into the lights if those don't bother you, like look into the backlights. Or you can also look at the feet of the people who are on the first row as well. These people do not realize that you aren't looking directly at them. They don't see that. So that's just something to be mindful of.
Yeah. And like you, I'm nervous. I can't eat, it's just like everything is just going, the anxiety is going. But like you said, the thing that you said is you have to do it scared. And for most people, and I know I can speak for myself, once you get going, you kind of like, it gets a little bit better. It gets better. I'm not saying that you won't be nervous, but just keep going. And it's like, okay, I feel a little bit more, relaxed. And then you just keep going. And also, something that you said is bullet points, because a lot of people try to memorize a script, especially if you don't have a teleprompter or something like that. It's just like memorize like bullet points or the main things that you want to say, and then just go from there, and just don't try to memorize everything, because with your mind going a mile a minute, thinking about, what you need to say, and also how scared you are, you're definitely going to forget about whatever you try to do if you're trying to remember a script. So
yeah, and it's also helpful to plan your pauses. So the bullet point is always going to help you if you don't have those other tools and resources, but plan your pauses. So what that means is, if you make a joke and people are going to laugh at it, opportunity for you to breathe, relax, and reset, because they're so busy laughing, they don't quite have their eyes on you. So planning pauses like that. Or if you are going to do a call and response, and just say, like, audience, turn to your neighbor and say X, Y, and Z. Even if they don't physically turn, they're still saying something, so that diverts the attention off of you, for you to reset and relax all over again. Some people, depending on if they have space to walk around while they're talking, or if they're just sitting down and you can't see the lower half of their body, I recommend, some people have like fidget spinners or just fidget things that can have in their hands, and that will help them as well. So that stops the rubbing of the legs that some people may do, or the pacing with their feet, or like the flicking of their nails. People click pins a lot too. So if you have a fidget, most fidget devices that are for people who have either ADD or ADHD, sometimes people have just a hyper focus issue. Those things don't make noise. So they're very small to have in your pocket, or just have in your hand, and people won't see it unless you speak with your hands.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think those things are very good. And you definitely don't want to click a pin. That is just so annoying to the audience and everything. So yeah, I do. Now, do you recommend that people tell the audience, I'm nervous before they get started?
They can, because we're all human, so the audience would understand. And oftentimes depending on the demographic, now some audiences, they're just like, okay, and they're just sitting there. Other audiences, they're like, oh, it's okay, like, and they'll relax so you can relax. And it depends on the host of the event or the activity. They'll do whatever to make you comfortable. But I announce to people, like, okay, when I get nervous, my voice cracks. So if that begins to happen, don't laugh at me. It's been happening since I was 16 years old. I can't help it.
Yeah.
And that typically gets them to laugh, and then that breaks the ice in the room. It's a true story. It actually happens, and it's going to happen. And once it happens, they laugh. So it's kind of like, now you see that I'm human just like you. I told you this would happen. And it's funny that it happens because it's been happening all these years.
Right.
So it's kind of like admitting your truth, so nobody can really use it against you. Nobody can judge you for something that you kind of let them know, like, oh, I have this flaw, just to let you know.
So we have another comment: breathe, relax, reset. That's a great mantra. So it kind of reminds me of the different world. Relax, relate, release. Relax, relate, release.
Yes.
So that's what that, I don't know why that came to my mind, but it actually does. What is the best way to correct negative talk, self-talk, while on camera?
While on camera, like when it comes out, or just when you're thinking it?
Yeah, when you're thinking it yourself while you're on camera. How can you reset and get yourself back? Because you're like, oh my God, like, for example, I just messed up. I don't know where I am. How can you collect yourself and move on? The self-talk, the negative self-talk in your head.
Just to stop what you're doing, literally, because that shows poise. I literally had a performance in a pageant. I think I was like 17, and my music was just skipping and doing all this stuff and all of that. And rather than just like getting lost and confused, I knew my 8 count. I just continued, and I let them. There got to a point where I was going to have a natural pause anyway. And at the natural pause, I just stopped and I let them pause the music, and I bowed and I walked off the stage. And what they did is they allowed me to come back up and do it over. I don't know what was happening with their music, but or with the system, but it was kind of like, it didn't make sense to continue to go when, to everyone else watching, there was no cadence in what I was doing to what the music was doing. So it's okay to just pause and say, okay, what I'm trying to say is X, Y, and Z. Or, okay, let me gather my thoughts. Or let me reframe my thinking before I continue to speak. That way, okay, I'm doing something, or I'm thinking in a way that I don't like, and I need to stop it now. Or give yourself like a kind of a catchphrase or a buzzword. So that buzzword shuts everything down, and then you go on about your day. And then that may be a conversation starter or a tip that you can give to someone else or whomever, the audience, to say, well, I have this habit of, self-criticizing. And when I find myself doing that, this is my buzzword. So I had to correct myself. And this is my reframing that I'm moving forward with here. And then boom, you just drop the gem on somebody. So being mindful, like, it's okay to just stop yourself and pause and go on with the things. Now, panel discussions, it may be more complicated because people it's like jumping double dutch. Everybody's trying to jump in and get their turn. But, it's okay to stop and say, let me regather my thoughts. Let me get myself together, because I'm not operating how I want to operate, or just having that buzzword to say, okay, let's do this over and keep going. So, yeah.
Yeah. So just be honest about it. Whatever is going on in your mind, just, you would say, just voice it. And then
just voice it, but don't make that the point of conversation. Like, don't make it a long thing. So it shouldn't interrupt anyone else. It shouldn't be, oh, what's wrong? How can we help you? It's kind of like, I need to acknowledge this and I'm moving forward.
Okay. Yeah. So would you suggest, you brought up something, would one of your suggestions be to try to do like panel first? If you're very nervous, will that help you to seek out, not being like the focus of attention, but maybe seeking out some opportunities where you're, on a panel?
Yeah, that would be very helpful because depending on the panel, if you're familiar with them or not, then you could be more comfortable around people that you know or topics that you're like comfortable with. Just being mindful of what the discussions are, what the vibe is of the panel. Obviously, all panels aren't created equal, but there's some panels, for example, like a sister circle. It's like I think would be like an ideal type of panel type conversation to join where everyone's level-headed, everyone's mature. There isn't a lot of feuding or negativity going on in a setting like that. So there would be no reason, like if you were to openly say like, oh, I'm nervous, I can see those young ladies being like, okay, no reason to be nervous and we got you, it's fine. People motivating you.
Right.
Whereas if there were more heated topics in a different type of setting, it may not go over well, especially if you are still new to public speaking. So definitely on a panel where you are either familiar with people or you can trust the people to kind of have positive interactions will be a good start.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. But sometimes you can't call it, if you don't know who the people are. It's just like, what did I get myself into? But I still think that you can learn from it. I just think that everything you do, you can learn from it by, watching it back or just being in the moment and having to collect yourself. Because like you said, things could be heated. Everyone is looking at you. How did you react? All of that is, a part of the whole experience, and just, trying to learn the lessons and move forward. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you. Do you have any final thoughts to share with us?
I don't have any final thoughts. I think that for anyone starting out, just always create some form of an agenda before you begin, and always start with recording yourself and maybe making your own rubric of 3 to 5 things that you would like to do and 3 to 5 things you would like to stop doing when you are doing public speaking, and just work from there. Like, not setting yourself to such a high standard, because you have to start somewhere. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to start.
Yeah, I agree. That is great advice. And lastly, how can people follow you and get more of you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is wellwatered_Chelsea. So that's wellwatered with an ED at the end of watered _Chelsea, which is spelled CHELSEA. And from my Instagram, you can also find my website, which is wellwateredcoaching.com. And I do have services for facilitation and training, but also anyone who is interested in life coaching.
Okay. Well, thank you again. I so appreciate your time in helping, women get it, overcome their fears, basically, overcome their fear of being on the camera. And I'm just looking forward to all the women, from this episode and others that we do, to get over that fear and go live, or, because I just feel that everybody has a message, and I feel that being shy or the fear should never stop you from doing that. So thank you again.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. So again, you guys, please follow Chelsea. She gave the information, so make sure you do that. And also in the comments section, please leave your biggest takeaway from this episode for us. Again, if you're not subscribed to our channel, make sure that you subscribe. And I just want to reiterate that if you know one person that could benefit from this episode, definitely share it with them, and follow us also on our IG channel. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank the Style True team, Jennifer and Eugene, for putting this together. And we will see you next week on another episode of The Bandwidth. Bye-bye.